$5 million meant for disaster relief is now at the center of a guilty verdict. And the question everybody is asking, what did she do with all that money?
Yeah.
5 million. And now a sitting member of Congress has been found guilty by the House Ethics Committee. Guilty of violating multiple rules tied to how that money was handled. Let that sit for a second. We're talking about money meant to help people during a crisis. And according to the committee's findings, large amounts of that money were routed through accounts, moved around, and connected back to campaign-related activity. Now, let's be clear. This is not a criminal conviction. But the House Ethics Committee doesn't just throw that language around. They said there's clear and convincing evidence on most of the charges. That matters. Because once you cross into that territory, this stops being speculation and starts becoming accountability. And to understand why this matters, you have to understand what this process is. The Ethics Committee is made up of members of Congress. These are not outside prosecutors. This is Congress looking at one of its own and saying something doesn't add up. And that's very rare. But historically, these processes move slowly, carefully, and very quietly. The last time I heard about one, it was George Santos in 2023 for similar charges, similar fraud-like charges, right? So when they come out with language about accountability, fraud, guilty, people have to pay attention. And the focus shifts to her, not just to what happened, but to what happens next. Does Congress act? Do they move towards censure? Do they consider expulsion? Or does this turn into another situation where the findings are acknowledged and then they slowly fade into the background? Because that's what people are watching for now. They didn't let George Santos fall into the background. They didn't let that happen. So I don't expect for them to let this happen. This is not just an allegation. The response here is wild. She said she didn't do it. She's not guilty. And here's where the bigger issue comes in, because this is not just about the rules. This is about the money, public money tied to a FEMA account related contract, which means it was connected to a disaster response. That means at some point, this money was supposed to help people dealing with real hardship, storm damage, displacement, recovery. And instead, according to the findings, according to them, some of that money may have been redirected in ways that raise serious questions. And people just don't hear numbers when they hear about that. They think about what that money represents. They think about who it was supposed to help and whether it actually got there. And this is where the trust starts to break down, because people can handle disagreement. They can handle politics. But what they struggle with is the idea that money meant for emergencies, for the poor and the indigent, might not have been used the way it was intended to be used. And once that idea takes hold, it spreads all over the place, right? Because then it becomes bigger than one case. People start to ask, how often does this happen? This is what we're finding with the guilty people in Minnesota. It's spreading all over the country, not just Democrat, not just Republican. It's spreading into all kinds of facets of government. Okay, state, federal, local, you name it, we're finding people have committed such egregious behavior when it came to money. How many times does money move in ways the public never sees? How many times do findings like this come out and nothing really changes? And that's why accountability here matters, because this is the moment where the system either reinforces the trust or weakens the trust. I expect them to censor her. Who knows what they're planning to do? We don't know. I'm assuming they're going to do that because they did it to George Santos. Okay? So if action is taken, if consequences are clear, if standards are reinforced, then the message is that the system can correct itself. But if this drags out, what she did gets buried in the process, it's going to turn into some kind of debate instead of a decision. Then people are going to notice that too. And that's where frustration is going to build. Because from the outside, it starts to look like there are different rules for different people. And once people start believing that, it's hard to reverse. That's all you got to do is say something a couple times and people believe it. So this is the same thing here. Keep saying she's guilty, 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 guilty. Then things will move, things will happen, and she might get her just desserts. We don't know. But if you don't say anything and you just let it slide, she might get away with it. Okay? This didn't happen in a vacuum. This is happening at the same time people are watching stories about funding rights, shutdown impacts, workers struggling to get paid. So you got one big story here where people are asking for resources, and another story where questions are being raised about how those resources were handled. And that contrast hits because it raises a simple question. If money is so tight, if decisions are this difficult, then how does something like this happen at all? But then again, we have to give it the credit that is due. This occurred probably several years ago. This didn't occur yesterday. This didn't occur last year. This occurred, I'm assuming, at least 2 or 3 years ago before they caught up to whatever she was doing. Okay? Again, we come back to the same point. This is not a criminal conviction, though, but it is a formal finding by a House committee. And that puts responsibility back where it belongs, on Congress, because this is their process, their standards, their decision to act or not act. So when you hear that number again, $5 million, 5 racks, 5 million racks, $5 million tied to relief efforts, and you hear that there's clear and convincing evidence of wrongdoing, the question is not about what happened. The question is what happens next. Because whatever happens next is what people are going to remember. Not the report, not the statements, but the outcome of what you're going to do with this particular person. Because any person that steals money from the American people needs to be held accountable. And whether this shows in the system or not, she still needs to be taken care of, and we still need to know what the outcome is. And the system has to be accountable for its own. And I'll see you guys in the next one.